So we're here with Vicki from 8 Hours, one of our clients. So I guess Vicki, if you can just tell our audience where you live and a little bit more about 8 Hours and how you got started.
Yeah, so I'm originally from the UK, but I've lived in Australia for, what must it be, coming up 8 years. Just decided I wanted to kind of follow some sunshine and move to a warmer country. And it's a wonderful country. I've spent many of those years in Melbourne, and I've recently moved up to Queensland to keep following some sunshine. And we've been up here for 10 months, and loving it up here. So about 8 hours. When I moved to Australia, it's the first time I ever really rented somewhere to live. I only ever really owned houses in the UK, and you get a pretty bog standard kind of white walls. I mean, the one we're in now, I think they're slightly grey, but generally you can't really put a great deal on the walls. And I like colour. I mean, you can see today, I'm always in colour. So I started looking for bed linen to be able to kind of make the bedroom space a little bit brighter and more colourful, and put a bit of personality into the house that you're living in. I love making a house a home, and I was looking around different companies, and there are a couple out there that are like okay, but generally the real kind of bright and more kind of bolder in your face type designs were from outlets that were probably the quality wasn't quite what I wanted it to be. And then on the flip of that, the companies that had really good quality generally went to, which is obviously the big market out there for neutrals, but they're just not what I wanted. So I'm like, okay, how can I get really good quality and get some personality in there? And I just really struggled. I've been in the buying and merchandising space for 25 years. And so I know how to basically source product and kind of get that idea going in terms of can I do this? So I thought, right, okay, I'll give it a go. I'll start to kind of put some feelers out to some factories and just see does it make sense? Is it cost effective? Can I afford it basically? Because it's all self funded between myself and my husband. So yeah, started there, looked at kind of different ways of how can we put these like bold patterns and put like real personality on linen. And then I've always loved art as well. So I thought, right, okay, well, how can I really like merge these two? So obviously I follow a lot of incredible artists on social media, on Instagram, on Pinterest. And I'll notice that they license a lot of their art. So okay, I like, okay, how can I try and then merge these two together? So I reached out to a couple of them, understood a bit more about that whole licensing space and what does that mean. And then it was born from there. Basically, it was kind of right. Okay, how much does it start licensing the art? I also really want the artist to be heavily involved as well. I don't then want just to kind of give it to me and then me go ahead and do whatever with it. It's their passion project. It's kind of who they are. So I'm always really keen to work closely with the artist, and for me, it's a collaboration. It's not me taking something they've done and plopping it on a quilt cover. It's about how we can make the best of that whole partnership. Which I think when I said to you right at the beginning is a bit of a lonely space starting your own company. So you want people involved who are as invested in the business as you are. That's well, probably a long-winded way of just telling you everything about how I started.
No, it's cool. Yeah, it's a cool story, and just how you got started. Obviously, as you know, business startup is not easy. I guess just diving more into Zing, and I was curious, just some like your main challenges that you had before working with us.
Yeah, so look, when I first started, like I said, my experiences in buying and planning and the marketing space was a whole different beast. In all honesty, I have new respect to all the marketers that I've worked with over the
Mhm.
years because I just kind of thought, oh, it's just something, put some ads out and that's it. But it's not it at all. And you really need people who know what they're doing in that space to be able to make this work. And I can say that firsthand from the first company that I used, it really wasn't great. Like the communication was really poor, and it really put me back, like put me out on wanting to work with another marketing agency. So I worked with a mentor from a business program in Melbourne, and I worked with him for a few months. And after a while, he said to me, he says, look, your biggest problem is scaling. Like you're not going to be able to scale by yourself. The best thing you can do is invest in getting a partner. And like I said, the first agency that I went with really did kind of it didn't work. Their communication was poor. They really weren't invested in the business. Yeah. So I was really kind of burnt by that. So I was a little bit skeptical. And then he recommended yourself. So eventually I'm like, okay, let's just give it a go and see what you think. I'll be honest, I'm at the other side of the world from where you are. So I'm just like, how the heck is this going to work? And then obviously we had our conversations, and I can honestly say I genuinely feel that your team is invested in 8 hours as much as I am. And that's all I've ever wanted, is I wanted someone to be on that journey with me, because it is lonely. And that's what I get from you guys, from every person that I've dealt with since we've been working together. And yeah, for me, that's a great support.
Yeah, and I guess like in terms of, obviously as you said, like in the past you didn't have good communication with like a different partner. So what does the communication and collaboration look like, from your perspective?
Yeah, so it's just having that kind of, obviously we use Slack. I never used it before. I just thought it was something like they used in design land, so I probably should get more on it really. And the way that your team communicate is, regular updates. They're not spamming me constantly or asking for lots of different things, even though I do kind of push more to be involved, which they're great with. So having that regular communication on like the Meta ads performance, kind of how has it been for the week, and then how is it going into the weekend, and then what's it like over the weekend. It took me time to understand all the different metrics and what they actually mean. I'm just like, what are all these acronyms? I'm like, cool, I don't know what this means. But your team have been great in explaining things to me. And yeah, just like the way that Patrick in particular will send information through just makes it is for dummies. Like, and I can say it myself, I can call myself a dummy. It's, emojis just to the point that like even I can understand it. And like I said, like I really, it's not my space, it's marketing speak. So to be able to communicate in that way with me, I just really appreciate, and that's what works really well for me.
100%. And I guess like obviously we've seen like a lot of good growth recently, so I'm curious more about that. Like what has been kind of like your aha moment, when it's like you've really seen like that growth? Like what does that look like for you?
Look, there's a lot of it is between like the designs and kind of the artists that's, I suppose, hot at that moment in time. Like all the artists I've worked with have all been incredible, and I've had really good relationships with them. I think with Malibu in particular, that's when it really started to kind of get some traction. And that's that's with Alex Mason, and she paints using acrylic paint, and it's almost like it's 3D how she paints. And then she uses a great photographer to be able to kind of capture that. So she'll take the photo, she'll then kind of make it into a seamless print so I can then use it on linens. And I think we were all quite shocked at kind of how fantastic it came up once you transferred it onto and it did. It looked incredible. And yeah, from there, it's just been scaling. I think obviously making sure I get the product out there to content creators, making sure that, I'm getting some good content for your guys to work with. And then Patrick's obviously really good at seeing what works, what's kind of getting the best traction through meta ads, and pushing that and scaling that and educating me when it comes to scaling, because I wasn't really on board at the beginning in terms of kind of pushing extra funds through meta ads. So that was an education piece for me, which I'm really glad they got me on board with eventually.
Yeah, I'm curious if you can just talk more about that, because obviously like it is, I think, a challenge for many founders to know like when do you spend more, like what does that process look like. So yeah, I was just curious about your experience with that.
Yeah. Look, for me, I said from the outset it was about consistency. And so we started off small. They were like, okay, we're doing like $50 a day. And obviously then we looked at kind of our model and how we operate, and then how can then incorporate that into getting me to spend a bit more, which was a great way of doing it. And I think the minute I saw the increase in sales from investing more in ads was a bit of a kind of click for me. And then the conversations were then, okay, can we scale more? And I'm like, we can, but I want to see it consistent. I want to see it kind of growing and kind of holding at that rate for I don't know, a week. I didn't want it just to be like on a day, and your team were really respectful of that. It is just me. It is all being funded by me. So yeah, there obviously are boundaries. I've only got so much money I can possibly spend at any one moment in time. But yeah, I think them just kind of showing me what happens when you do spend the extra money, educating me so then I understand what we're getting from it, which obviously I want to see the sales come through. And yeah, I think just kind of working together and for me to then understand as we go kind of what that looks like.
For sure. Yeah, and I guess if you can talk more about some of the specific results or outcomes, like kind of how this, impacted you as a business owner, just like life in general, like our help and partnership.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, the more sales that come through, the more I can invest in stock. The aim, I'm still very new in this space. So the aim for me is that is for me not to keep having to put our own money into this and for it to kind of start paying for itself. I mean, and eventually, I'd love to be able to, actually get paid from it. Because it's a long journey, and I was fully aware of that going into it. I didn't think, I've been making millions from day one. I've been in this space for a long time in big retailers, and I know it all depends on how much you can put in as well. So it was kind of just understanding that whole process and how it all works, really.
For sure. And I'm curious also, like, what is your vision? Like, obviously, you come from big retail. Do you want to go into physical retail? Do you want to expand, international? It's like, what is kind of your vision for the next few years?
Yeah, I think I'd love a space to actually have a little shop myself, but really, I don't think that's probably cost effective. So, if for right now, I'd say it's scaling what I've got within Australia, New Zealand, and then knowing that I've probably got a good connection to the UK, how can I grow it over there? Understanding then that supply chain element, what can I do to make things more cost effective there? Because shipping from Australia is just not cost effective. It's way too far. And products are heavy. So it's such a fine line between what does make good business sense, because although I love what I do, I am here to try and make money. And get 8 hours to be able to continue and kind of do its own thing. So for me, I would love to get to a point where it can be international. I'd love to get to a point where I can put product into different countries and dispatch from those countries. But at the moment, step one is getting it kind of to a point where we're getting the frequency through to be able to use a 3PL. Because this is where it happens. This is where the packing and the from I've got quite a large garage, so it's kind of where everything happens right now. So I think like the first step is then to be able to get that off my plate, and it's good for social media. I take pictures of my husband being my warehouse guy, and everyone seems to love it, and so that'll do for now. It's quite funny as we're going through like that whole kind of social media space, but really that first step is to get into a 3PL, and then okay, what does that look like as we can go into different countries and make some good decisions about how we then dispatch to different countries.
Makes sense. Yeah. I mean, once you get to the UK, you can easily sell across Europe, and it just makes it much more seamless. I guess in
Yeah.
terms of just to kind of wrap up, how likely are you to recommend Zing to other people?
Without 100%, there's absolutely no way that I wouldn't. And anybody who will, give me the time of day to even listen to me, I'd always recommend it. I think it's too hard to do everything yourself. Which is something that someone told me at the beginning, and you don't always believe them. You just think, well, I'm spending all this money in stock. How can I then now invest in having somebody else to come on board and be able to help me in these spaces? So you kind of have to go through those motions yourself. But then I think when you actually get someone like yourself who will work really well together, and you can see the growth and you can see that everyone's invested in that growth, and for me, that's just a recipe for success. And it's something that as we grow, want to be able to scale, which is generally a term that your guys use a lot with me.
Yeah, awesome. If somebody's watching this and if they wanted to buy from 8 hours, do you mind sharing your website, social media, I guess best ways that people can reach out and find you?
Yep. So the website is 8hours.com.au. We do ship to many different countries. We do have customers in the US.
Awesome. Well, Vicky, thanks so much for your time today. And yeah, it was a pleasure chatting with you.